The fluorescent lights of Aurora Station hummed a low, steady lie that everything was normal. Kalen Dax had learned to hate that hum. It never changed, even when people's neural links began sparking in their sleep, even when a docking clamp sheared through a cargo pod last Tuesday. Routine malfunctions were his life. He was the fixer. Today's ticket read, Bracelet device, intermittent lag, user, Dr. Alara Venn, biorecovery. He found her in Observation Module 7, a transparent bubble overlooking the bruised purple swirl of the Cygnus Nebula. She stood with her back to him, left hand pressed against the viewport. A thin silver bracelet circled her wrist, sleek, unremarkable. Medical grade. Dr. Venn? Kalen tapped his toolkit. Your device? She turned. Pale skin, sharp eyes, a splash of freckles across her nose. It's nothing, really. Just slows down sometimes, like it's thinking too hard. Let me see. He reached for her wrist. Standard procedure. The bracelet had a diagnostic port smaller than a pinprick. He'd done this 1,000 times. The moment his thumb brushed the silver band, the hum stopped. Not faded. Stopped. Kalen blinked. The view outside the window, the nebula's slow dance, froze mid-swirl. He spun around. A technician 2 meters away had her hand raised to a coffee cup. The coffee hung in the air. A perfect amber teardrop, motionless. No, that was impossible. Don't panic, Alara said quietly. He jerked his hand back from her bracelet. The world remained frozen. What did you do? His voice cracked. I didn't do anything. Someone else triggered the field. She stepped closer, and the frozen technician's sleeve brushed her shoulder, stiff as stone. That bracelet is a temporal anchor. Military prototype. I pulled it from a black site incinerator 6 months ago. Kalen's training screamed at him. Deny, verify, escape. But the coffee droplet hadn't fallen. The technician hadn't blinked. His own reflection in the viewport stared back with hollow dread. How many people on this station, he asked. 5,211. Alara's jaw tightened. They're not dead, just paused. The field expands from the bracelet's last paired device, that's mine, and locks all quantum states within a radius. But the field was triggered remotely. We have about 27 hours before the power cell fries and the collapse kills every frozen nervous system in range. Kalen's chest felt like a fist was closing around it. 27 hours to do what? To find the trigger. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't read. Fear, yes, but also something else. Hope. You're immune because you touched the anchor. So am I. There may be others. We move fast, we find the source, we shut it down. He wanted to run. Where? The airlocks wouldn't cycle. The shuttle bay was full of frozen pilots. Then he saw it. A hatch at the far end of the module, the maintenance crawlway leading to the reactor core, was open. It hadn't been open 30 seconds ago, and through the narrow gap a shadow moved. Not frozen. Someone else was walking. Dr. Venn, Kalen whispered. We're not alone. The shadow stepped into the light. Tall, military crew cut. A commander's insignia on a uniform that was too clean, too pressed for a station that had been on emergency backup for 3 days. His eyes locked onto Alara's bracelet. You stole from the wrong people, Commander Voss said, and his hand reached for a sidearm that hadn't existed on his belt a moment ago. Kalen grabbed Alara's wrist. Run. They ran through a gallery of statues. The station's main atrium had been a bustling hub before the freeze. Engineers with data pads, a family sharing a meal, 2 teenagers laughing at a holographic comic. Now they stood like museum exhibits, faces caught in mid-expression. Kalen dodged a frozen woman whose hair floated in 0G that wasn't 0G anymore. Gravity still worked for him and Alara. Another impossibility. Left, Alara yelled. Kalen slid around a corner into a service corridor. Behind them, Voss moved with terrifying efficiency. Not running, but walking fast, his boots clicking on the deck plates. Each click felt like a countdown. He's not chasing, Kalen panted. He's hurting. Alara cursed under her breath. He knows where we're going. Which is where? She pulled him into a maintenance closet and sealed the door. Inside, the air was warm and smelled of ozone. Emergency lights flickered, but even the flicker was frozen. A single red diode glowed steady. The bracelet's reactor core override is in sublevel 9, she said, breathless. If we can reach it, I can reverse the pairing and collapse the field safely. Safely? No one dies. Kalen pressed his palms against his eyes. 27 hours, a military killer, a frozen city of 5,000 people, and a woman who had apparently committed high treason by stealing a time-freezing bracelet from a black site. Why, he asked. Why did you take it? Alara's face softened for just a second, a crack in her armor. Because they weren't building a weapon, Kalen. They already had one. They were building a test. The bracelet doesn't just freeze time. It records every possible death of the wearer. Every fall, every shot, every accident. Then it edits reality to avoid the worst ones. He stared at her. That's not physics. That's hell, she finished. I know, but it works. I've seen it work. And someone just triggered it from outside the station. Which means they know I'm here. And they want it back. A loud thud hit the closet door. Then another. Voss wasn't trying to break it down, he was marking it. 3 evenly spaced dents in the metal. He's waiting, Kalen realized. He doesn't need to catch us. He just needs us to lead him to the override. Alara's hand found his. Her skin was cold. Then we don't go to sublevel 9. What? We go to the core itself. Reactor module. The bracelet can be overloaded there. It'll burn out the temporal field in a controlled pulse. Everyone wakes up. And us? She didn't answer. That was answer enough. Another thud. Closer this time. Voss's voice drifted through the metal. Dr. Venn, you've seen the simulations. You know the bracelet always picks the survivor. The question is, who does it pick this time? Kalen looked at Alara. Her eyes were wet. Not from fear, from rage. I'm not letting him decide, she whispered. She grabbed the maintenance hatch at the back of the closet and wrenched it open. A vertical shaft dropped into darkness. Below faintly, Kalen could hear the reactor's heartbeat. A deep, rhythmic pulse. Trust me? She asked. He thought of the frozen child in the atrium. A little girl with a balloon, her smile eternal and horrible. No, he said. But I'm not letting you go alone. They dropped into the dark together. Above them, the closet door exploded inward. Voss stepped through, looked down the shaft, and smiled. The reactor shaft was a cathedral of cold metal and humming conduits. Kalen's palms burned from the emergency slide, a maintenance rail that carried them down in a controlled fall. Alara landed first, her boots skidding on a grated catwalk. He slammed into her, and they both crashed against a railing. Below, the reactor core pulsed like a blue sun. Heat shimmered. He's coming, Alara said, pointing up. Kalen saw it. Voss descending not on the rail, but through the shaft's walls, using magnetic clamps on his boots and palms. He moved like a spider. His sidearm was out. Why isn't he shooting? Kalen whispered. Because if he damages the bracelet before the override, the field becomes permanent. Everyone stays frozen, forever. That's not better. It's not supposed to be. It's leverage. They ran along the catwalk. The core's light cast long shadows. Every few meters, Kalen saw someone frozen. Technicians in radiation suits, a janitor with a mop, 2 security officers mid-argument. All of them waiting for a moment that might never come. Ahead, a junction split the catwalk into 3 paths. Alara stopped. Which one? Kalen asked. I don't know. The schematics I stole were incomplete. The reactor's been modified since. Behind them, a soft click. Voss had landed on the catwalk. He wasn't rushing. He was enjoying this. Dr. Venn, he called out. Do you know how many times I've done this? Chased someone through a frozen station? The bracelet's previous owners always think they can hide. But time is my ally. I've seen every trick. Kalen grabbed Alara's arm and pulled her left. They took the middle junction. The catwalk narrowed. Pipes snaked overhead, dripping condensation that hung in frozen beads. Kalen's heart hammered so loud he was sure Voss could hear it. Then he saw the child, a little boy, maybe 5 years old, frozen mid-step. He was reaching for a toy, a small metal spaceship that had fallen from his grip. The ship hovered an inch from his fingers. His face was pure concentration. Kalen stopped. Keep moving, Alara urged. We can't just leave them. We're not leaving them. We're saving them, but only if we get to the core. He knew she was right. But the boy's eyes, they weren't blank. Frozen people in a temporal field didn't lose consciousness. They were aware, trapped inside their own bodies, unable to move, unable to scream, watching seconds stretch into years. Oh God, Kalen breathed. They can see us. Yes, Alara said softly. So don't let them watch us fail. She pulled him forward. They reached the reactor's control room. A circular chamber with a single terminal and a glass wall overlooking the core. Elara slammed her palm on the terminal. It stayed dark. "The field," she said. "It's locking all non-critical systems. I can't access the override from here." "Then how?" A sound behind them. Not Voss, something else. The air shimmered. Kalen blinked. For a fraction of a second, he saw a different scene. Elara lying on the floor, blood pooling from her chest, his own hands covered in red. Voss standing over them, laughing. Then it vanished. "Did you see that?" he asked, voice shaking. Elara's face went pale. "The bracelet. It's not just freezing time anymore. It's starting to bleed alternate timelines. What you saw was a possible death. Mine or yours?" She didn't answer. Because Voss stepped through the doorway, gun raised, and his smile was the worst thing Kalen had ever seen. "The bracelet is waking up," Voss said. "And when it does, it will choose the optimal survivor. I've trained for that moment." "Have you?" he fired. Not at them, at the glass wall. The bullet froze mid-flight, suspended an inch from the first crack. "That's a courtesy," Voss said. "Next one goes through your kneecap. Now give me the bracelet." The air shimmered again. Another vision. Kalen falling into the reactor core, arms outstretched, Elara screaming. The bracelet was showing him his own eulogy. Kalen's hands trembled. The shimmering vision faded, but its afterimage burned in his mind, his body tumbling into the blue-white heart of the reactor. He could still feel the phantom heat. "Elara," he said, low and urgent. "Tell me everything, now." Voss took a step closer. The frozen bullet hovered between them like a promise. Elara's shoulders dropped. Not surrender, acceptance. The bracelet doesn't just freeze time or show possible deaths. It records every death of the wearer across parallel timelines, millions of them. Then it uses that data to calculate a survival path, a sequence of events that leads to the wearer living. "Sounds useful," Kalen said. "It is, until the database corrupts. Then it starts trying to edit the present in real time. It doesn't just predict death. It causes small events to avoid larger ones. A dropped tool, a misfired gun, a misplaced footstep, all to nudge reality toward the survival path." Voss laughed, a dry, ugly sound. "She's leaving out the best part. The bracelet isn't a protector. It's a recorder. Every timeline it saves, every death it prevents, gets stored. The military wanted to build a library of death. Imagine knowing exactly how to kill anyone, anywhere, because you've watched them die 10 million times. Kalen felt sick. "You're harvesting people." "We're optimizing them," Voss corrected. "Now give me the bracelet or I shoot her and the bracelet records her death anyway. Either way, I win." Elara grabbed Kalen's hand. Her fingers laced through his. The bracelet pressed against both their wrists. "Listen to me," she whispered. "The core, if we jump together, the bracelet will register 2 wearers. It won't know which survival path to choose. The paradox will overload the system and collapse the field. Jump into the reactor? It's the only way." Voss raised his gun. "Don't." The air shimmered again, but this time it didn't fade. A full scene materialized around them. Kalen and Elara on the catwalk, holding hands, stepping off the edge. In the vision, they fell together. The reactor's light swallowed them. Then a flash. Then nothing. Then reset. The vision played again. Same fall, same flash. Same nothing. Again. "It's looping," Kalen realized. "The bracelet is trying to find a survival path where we both live. And it can't. Because there isn't one," Voss said softly. "That's the truth. The bracelet always picks one survivor, always. You two jump together, the reactor kills you both. No path, no reset. Just death." The frozen bullet began to vibrate. The temporal field was destabilizing. Elara turned to Kalen. Her face was calm now, no fear, no rage. Just a strange, quiet peace. "Then I'll go alone," she said. She let go of his hand. The bracelet glowed red. A countdown appeared in the air above it, visible to all 3 of them. E00312. 3 minutes until the field collapses permanently, Voss said, lowering his gun. "Everyone on this station stays frozen forever, unless one of you makes a choice." Kalen looked at the frozen child behind the glass, at the hovering coffee droplet, at the bullet that had stopped just for them. He made his choice. Kalen grabbed Elara's wrist, not to stop her, but to hold her still. "You're not jumping alone," he said. "Kalen, Let me finish. His voice was steel. You said the bracelet records deaths to find survival paths. What if we give it a death it can't predict? Alara blinked. What do you mean? He looked at Voss. The commander stood frozen, not by the temporal field, but by confusion. For the first time, he didn't have a play. Voss, Kalen said, you're wearing a remote trigger for the bracelet, aren't you? Something in your uniform. That's how you're immune. That's how you followed us. Voss's jaw tightened. Perceptive. Then here's the new plan. Kalen stepped between Alara and the commander. You want the bracelet? Come take it. He ripped the silver band from Alara's wrist. She gasped. The countdown flickered, 0247, then steadied. Voss lunged. Kalen didn't dodge. He threw the bracelet, not at Voss, but over the railing toward the reactor core. The silver band spun through the air, slow and beautiful, caught in the frozen time field's last gasp. Voss screamed and dove after it. And Kalen saw his opening. He grabbed Alara and pulled her toward the control room's emergency override, a manual lever painted red, hidden behind a panel. She wrenched it down. Alarms blared. The reactor's blue light turned white. What did you just do? Voss shouted, clutching the bracelet where it had landed 2 feet from the core's edge. I reversed the polarity of the magnetic containment field, Alara said, breathless. The reactor will vent plasma in 90 seconds. Everything within 500 meters turns to vapor, including us, Voss said, including the bracelet. Voss looked at the silver band in his hand. For a long moment he didn't move. Then he began to laugh, a broken, incredulous sound. You'd die to keep it from us. We'd die to keep it from everyone, Kalen said. The countdown hit 000115. Voss's expression changed. The arrogance drained away, replaced by something almost human. I was there when they built the first prototype. I watched 19 volunteers die in the first hour. The bracelet recorded every second. Do you know what I saw in their faces? Kalen shook his head. Acceptance, Voss whispered. They weren't afraid. They were relieved. Because the bracelet showed them every possible death, and they realized that most of them were kinder than the life they'd been given. He stood up slowly. The bracelet dangled from his fingers. I don't want to die here, he said. But I'm not going back to that lab. Not after seeing this. He tossed the bracelet to Alara. She caught it on instinct. What are you doing? She asked. Giving you a head start. Voss turned and walked toward the reactor core's emergency vent, a narrow tube that led to an external airlock. The vent will eject me before the plasma hits. I'll burn up in the nebula. The bracelet's remote trigger dies with me. You'll be free, Kalen said. Voss glanced back. For just a second, his eyes met Alara's. No, I'll be dead. But so will the weapon. That's a better legacy than most get. He stepped into the vent. The hatch sealed behind him. Alara shoved the bracelet into Kalen's hands. The core, if we throw it in now, the temporal field will collapse in a pulse. Everyone wakes up. What about us? We'll be at the epicenter. She smiled, a real smile, tired and warm. But we'll be together. They ran to the railing. Below, the reactor's white light was starting to flicker. Plasma venting in 0003. Kalen raised the bracelet. Alara put her hand over his. On 3, she said. 1. The air shimmered one last time. In the vision, Kalen saw himself older, gray-haired, sitting on a porch somewhere green. Alara was beside him. They were laughing. The bracelet's last gift, he realized. A possible future. 2. He closed his fingers around the silver band. 3. They threw it together. The bracelet fell into the light. The countdown stopped. The world went silent. And then a pulse, gentle as a heartbeat. It rolled outward from the reactor, through the catwalks, through the frozen crew, through every locked moment on the station. The technician's coffee droplet fell. The child caught his toy. The 2 security officers finished their argument. And Kalen opened his eyes. He was lying on the catwalk. Alara was beside him, breathing. Above them, the reactor hummed its normal, steady song. The bracelet was gone. Voss was gone. And somewhere deep in the station's revived systems, an alarm began to blare. Not a warning. A celebration. Kalen sat up too fast. His skull pounded. Beside him, Alara groaned and pressed a hand to her temple. Did it work? She whispered. He looked around. The control room was empty. The catwalk was whole. The reactor's blue light pulsed in its normal rhythm. No frozen crew. No shimmering visions. No countdown. I think so, he said. But something was wrong. The maintenance hatch behind them, the one they'd climbed down from the atrium, was sealed. Not just closed, welded, fresh weld marks still smoking. We didn't do that, Alara said. Kalen stood and helped her up. His legs felt like jelly. The temporal field's collapse had left a ringing in his ears, a strange sense of déjà vu so strong it nearly knocked him down again. We need to get to the bridge, he said. Verify all systems. They climbed the access ladder in silence. Every deck they passed looked normal, crew members walking, talking, working. But Kalen noticed the glances. Too many people stared at him and Alara as if they'd seen ghosts. When they reached the bridge, the station's commander, a stern woman named Ashford, was waiting for them. Her arms were crossed. Dr. Venn, Mr. Dax. Care to explain why the reactor logged a temporal collapse event 12 minutes ago? Temporal collapse? Kalen played dumb. We were doing routine diagnostics on... Don't. Ashford held up a datapad. The AI recorded everything. The freeze. The bracelet. Commander Voss's exit. We have 5,000 witnesses who remember being frozen for 27 hours. They're all asking the same question. She turned the datapad toward them. On the screen was a single line of text repeated thousands of times in the station's log. Why did you save us? Kalen opened his mouth to answer and froze. Not the temporal kind, the realization kind, because standing behind Ashford, wearing a clean uniform and a too calm expression, was Commander Voss. You're dead, Kalen breathed. Voss tilted his head. Am I? I remember stepping into the vent. I remember the plasma, and then I remember waking up in my quarters 5 minutes ago. No burns, no scars, just a headache. The room went cold. Alara grabbed Kalen's arm. Her nails dug in. The bracelet didn't collapse, she said, her voice barely a whisper. It reset. We're in a loop. Ashford frowned. What loop? Kalen's mind raced. If the bracelet had reset, that meant the countdown hadn't been a destruction timer. It had been a reload timer. The weapon had done exactly what it was designed to do. Find a survival path. But whose? He looked at Alara. She looked at Voss. Voss looked at the bracelet, which was suddenly back on Alara's wrist, glowing faintly blue. No, Alara said. No, I threw it. We both threw it. You threw a copy, Voss said softly. The real bracelet is quantum entangled with the station's reactor core now. Every time the core cycles, the bracelet resets time to the moment you first touched it. You're not survivors. You're batteries. The bridge lights flickered. On the main view screen, a countdown appeared, not in the air this time, but in the station's primary display. 24 hours, Ashford said, her face pale. Until what? Until the core cycles again, Voss replied. And we do this all over. Kalen's hands shook. He'd seen the visions. He'd felt the falls. And now he understood the truth the bracelet had been trying to show him all along. It wasn't trying to kill them. It was trying to perfect them. Kalen sat in the reactor's control room alone, staring at the blue glow. 23 hours left. Around him, the station hummed with false normalcy. Crew members walked the corridors unaware that they had lived this day before, or that they would live it again. Alara found him an hour later. She looked smaller somehow, the weight of the loop pressing down on her shoulders. I've been thinking, she said, sitting beside him. So have I. Then you know what we have to do. He nodded. The bracelet is entangled with the core. We can't destroy it, but we can override it. How? Kalen pulled a datapad from his jacket. On the screen was a schematic of the bracelet's internal architecture, Alara's stolen plans now complete with the military's final modifications. He'd spent the last hour annotating it. The bracelet records possible deaths to calculate survival paths. But what if we feed it something else? Not deaths, lives. Alara's eyes widened. You want to reverse the database. I want to show the bracelet a million different ways to live. Not just survive, thrive. Gardening, laughing, growing old. The mundane miracles, he tapped the schematic. The core's processing power can handle a data injection of that size. But it needs a source. What source? Kalen took her hand. Us, our memories. Everything we've seen, everything we've imagined. We pump it into the core. Overwrite the death library with a life library. The next time the core cycles, the bracelet won't reset to a survival path. It'll reset to a happiness path. Voss appeared in the doorway. He looked tired, the sharp edges of his military bearing worn down by the weight of too many loops. You'll die, he said quietly. Injecting your full neural patterns into the core will burn out your minds. The bracelet will keep your bodies alive, but you won't be in them anymore. Kalen met his eyes. Would that be so different from what you were building? A library of death? Voss was silent for a long moment. Then he stepped aside. Do it, he said. But I'm going with you. What? I have memories too. Ugly ones, but also a daughter. She's 12. I haven't seen her in 3 years because the military said family was a distraction. I want her to exist in the new loop. I want her to have a chance. Alara squeezed Kalen's hand. 3 sources. Triple redundancy. It might work. They moved to the core's primary access terminal, a circular pedestal surrounded by cooling vents and warning lights. Alara linked the bracelet to the terminal. Voss placed his palm on a secondary sensor. Kalen stood between them, holding both their hands. On my count, he said. We think of every good moment we've ever had. Every laugh. Every sunset. Every stupid, beautiful, pointless joy. 1, he thought of his mother's kitchen, the smell of bread. 2, he thought of Alara's smile in the observation module before the freeze. 3, the core screamed. Light flooded the room, not blue but gold, warm. Kalen felt his memories pulling away from him like pages torn from a book. He saw Voss's daughter learning to ride a bike. He saw Alara dancing in the rain on a forgotten colony world. He saw a million futures, each one brighter than the last. The bracelet glowed white. Then it shattered, not into pieces but into light. The light spread through the core, through the station, through the frozen nebula outside. When Kalen opened his eyes, he was lying on the catwalk. Alara was beside him. Voss was leaning against the wall, breathing hard. No countdown.
No visions.
No bracelets. Did it work? Alara whispered. Kalen looked at his hands. They were whole. His mind was quiet. And somewhere deep in the station's systems, a new hum had begun. Not the lie of normalcy, but the truth of something better. Some malfunctions, he said, helping her to her feet, are miracles. They walked to the observation module together. The nebula swirled outside, purple and gold and endless. Behind them, the station's crew went about their lives, unaware of how close they'd come to becoming ghosts. Voss was already on the comm, crying quietly as he booked passage to his daughter's colony, and Alara leaned her head on Kalen's shoulder. What happens now? She asked. He smiled. Now we find out. The nebula glowed. The station hummed. And for the first time in a very long time, time moved forward. Not locked, not looped, but free.